Alone at a wedding, an amazing CEO in a wheelchair discovers transformative love after a single encounter. Jake sat alone at his younger brother's wedding, the intricate decorations twinkling like distant stars while the laughter of couples surrounded him. Once the epitome of success at 35, his wheelchair didn't just confine him physically, it locked him away from the warmth of connection he craved. He felt the weight of judgment in every glance thrown his way, whispers at the table echoing silently in his mind. They didn't realize he was more than the wheelchair, more than the accolades. Their assumptions stung sharper than the buzz of his phone, every notification a reminder of a world he felt disconnected from. As he watched couples dance, a chilling thought curled in his mind. Did his fortune truly mean anything if it didn't come with love? The familiar ache in his chest grew heavier, feeding into a spiraling sense of isolation. He thought of the endless hours spent building his tech empire, the sacrifices made at the cost of relationships. Yet, here he was wealthy but empty, a king without a kingdom, doubting the path he carved in pursuit of success. It was then that he almost retreated into the shadows of the venue. But just as despair threatened to pull him under, his eyes caught sight of a nearby table where a woman sat quietly. Emma, with wild curls framing her face, was sketching the scene, her pencil dancing across the page. In that moment, the world around Jake faded. She appeared utterly absorbed, unaware of the overwhelming pressure Jake wrestled with. Her simplicity felt like a breath of fresh air amidst the perfume of pretension enveloping him. Before he could second-guess himself, Jake approached, curiosity rising above his fears. "What are you capturing?" he asked, his voice remarkably steadier than he felt. Her eyes met his, rich with warmth, free from the layers of judgment he had expected. "Life in this moment," she replied, glancing at the couples twirling around, obliviously radiant. Their conversation flowed, revealing a shared understanding. Emma's passion for art and struggling to sell her work resonated with Jake's own battles, the fear of losing his identity within his corporate success. Just as their connection deepened, Jake realized he was grappling with the disapproval that loomed over the disparities of their backgrounds. The whispers of his family, the expectations buried deep within, twisted like vines around his heart. Did love belong only to those who fit a mold? This uncertainty gnawed at him, clawing at the walls he had built around his heart. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the evening progressed, Emma's laughter felt like sunlight piercing through clouded skies, illuminating a path Jake had forgotten existed. But the comfort faded when a conversation nearby revealed whispers about Emma's family and artistic legacy that challenged every preconceived notion Jake held. Should he risk it all for a chance at true love, or would he choose the safety of expectations, descending back into the familiarity of his corporate life, forever wondering what might have been? Standing at the crossroads, Jake sensed the urgency of his dilemma. Hurdles loomed, shadows casting doubt on this newfound connection. The stakes rose high, and just as he gathered the courage to pursue what felt so right, his phone buzzed. An unexpected message flashed on the screen, a cliffhanger that threatened to unravel everything he had just dared to believe. Heart racing, he stared at the notification, a simmering dread curling within him. Would he let this moment slip away, or dive into the abyss of possibility? The tension thrummed thick in the air, leaving clear paths yet to explore, encompassing the very essence of love amid relentless expectations. Jake hesitated, his heart pounding against the confines of his chest, as he wrestled with the tension escalating inside him. The notification blinked ominously on his phone screen, another urgent message from his business partner. It was the kind of call he was trained to heed, commanding his immediate attention. Yet here he was, teetering on the precipice of something profound with Emma, a moment that could alter the familiar narrative of his life. His mind raced, replaying the conversations of the evening like a looping reel. Emma's laughter felt like music breaking through his moments of doubt. But could love truly flourish in a garden of fears and expectations? Would her artistic legacy overshadow his corporate triumphs in the eyes of his family? As if to punctuate his spiraling thoughts, he felt the weight of their whispers heavy around him, a cacophony of disapproval. Taking a deep breath, Jake silenced the phone, the device dropping into his lap as he turned to Emma, who was blissfully unaware of the turmoil stirring inside him. "Would you care to dance?" he asked, breaking through the silence that had begun to settle around them. The invitation sprang from an impulse he hadn't anticipated, but he knew he had to step beyond the barriers he had erected for so long. She blinked in surprise but then smiled, that warmth enveloping him once more, steering him toward a world where judgments faded. "I'd love to," she replied, her voice soft and inviting. As she shifted closer, Jake felt the tight constraints of his doubts begin to loosen. If only slightly, with effort, he maneuvered his wheelchair onto the dance floor. People parted like waves, their gazes shifting from him to the beautiful woman at his side, embracing an unscripted moment. The music swelled, each beat resonating within him, urging him forward. Emma wasted no time as she reached for his hand, an anchor amidst the swirling chaos around them. They danced not as a couple lost in a romantic dream, but as two individuals sharing an expression that transcended words. Jake could see the focus in her eyes, the way she remained steady beside him, moving to the rhythm of a melody that highlighted the very essence of connecting souls. As he twirled his wheelchair, the ambient noise transformed into a soft hum, and time stretched, allowing Jake to truly exist in the moment. Like the fluid strokes of Emma's pencil, capable of capturing life's nuances on a canvas, he found clarity amid uncertainty. The whispers of his past began to fade as he realized that perhaps love wasn't contingent upon fitting into someone else's mold. Yet even as he surrendered to the moment, the phone call loomed on the edge of his consciousness. More than just a business matter, it was a reminder of his empire, his responsibilities, the fierce expectations to maintain his status. The dichotomy tugged at him, and for the first time, he questioned whether this relentless pursuit was worth sacrificing the very essence of joy. With each beat of the music, a revelation fluttered in his mind, to risk losing what he knew meant confronting the very foundation of who he was. But the shadows of his future loomed, and he felt them vining around his heart once again. Could he truly let go of the need for validation, the need to uphold the success to which he was shackled? The dance slowed, and Emma stood before him, concern shimmering in her gaze. "Are you okay?" she asked straightforwardly. Before he could respond, the unmistakable pressure of anxiety flooded back, and the nagging message awaited him, a disruptive reminder of his crumbling equilibrium. He looked at Emma and knew he needed to make a decision. The struggle between ambition and love weighed heavily on him, a crossroads where everything could potentially change. "Could we talk?" he finally asked, the words laced with a mix of hope and fear. As they slipped away from the dancing crowd, Jake understood they were stepping into a conversation that could either fortify a bond or sever it entirely. The urgency of his decision loomed like an approaching storm, heralding a confrontation he could no longer avoid. This moment could define everything, and as he faced his emerging feelings for Emma, he prepared for a truth he had yet to confront. Was he ready to abandon the sanctum of his old life for the uncharted territory of something genuine? Each moment ticked by, leading him to a revelation he never saw coming. As Jake prepared to unravel his thoughts, the notion hung heavy in the air. It was time to face the implications of his past or risk losing everything. Jake maneuvered his wheelchair into a quiet corner of the venue, the lively sounds of laughter and music receding, transforming into a distant echo. This was not just another conversation, it was a reckoning. He looked deeply into Emma's eyes, searching for a sign of encouragement, a hint that she understood the conflict raging inside him. "Jake," Emma began, her voice steady yet laced with concern. "What's on your mind?" He opened his mouth, a familiar fear bubbling to the surface, but before he could articulate the turmoil, something within him ignited a spark of determination. No longer could he allow himself to be a mere cog in the machine of corporate success, tethered to expectations that stifled his essence. The stakes had shifted. This was not just about him anymore, it was about the possibility of something real with Emma. "Emma," he inhaled deeply, gathering the courage to veer away from the past. "I've built my life around success, around this image of who I am supposed to be." His words came tumbling out, raw and unfiltered. "But being here with you tonight, it's like I'm starting to see the bigger picture. I can't keep letting fear dictate my choices." She regarded him intently, allowing his vulnerability to settle between them. Jake felt his heart race as he continued, "It scares me to think of letting go of everything I've worked for. But it terrifies me more to think of losing my chance at happiness alongside you." Jake watched her face transform, the corners of her mouth forming a subtle yet encouraging smile. His heart beat quicker, sensing her acceptance of his struggle. "You know, you don't have to give it all up to find happiness. It can coexist," Emma said softly, her words echoed with an underlying truth he had ignored for far too long. His entire career had been dedicated to balancing ambition and success within defined parameters. But now, as he contemplated a life intertwined with Emma, he faced a different equation. Could he redefine what success meant to him? "You make it sound easy," he said, half smiling, trying to mask the apprehension that still lurked. "What if my family can't accept this? What if they see this as a step down or worse yet, a distraction?" "Then let them learn," Emma said confidently, her gaze unwavering. "Love doesn't have to conform to their expectations. It only has to feel right to you." Jake felt a wave of empowerment washing over him. Adversity was familiar territory. He had navigated the business world with a fierce tenacity. Maybe this complex dance of emotion was just another challenge to embrace. Yet the shadows of doubt still intertwined with his newfound clarity. He succeeded at the helm of his business, but an unconventional relationship brought its own risks, ones he hadn't planned for. "Every step gains weight," he mused, his thoughts racing to calculate a path forward. "What if I falter? What if it doesn't work out?" Emma reached out, softly grasping his hand. The warmth of her touch surged through him, grounding his spiraling thoughts. "Then you pick yourself up and figure it out together. We create something unique." For the first time, the chaos swirling in his mind settled into a single thought, perhaps allowing uncertainty was a path to growth. He had always been the architect of his own success, meticulously crafting the life he thought he wanted. But had he ever truly asked whether it fulfilled him? In that moment, a deep realization struck Jake. It was time to recalibrate his definitions, not just of love, but of his own identity. Searching within, he unearthed a hidden piece of himself, the authentic Jake untouched by corporate labels and societal breadth. "I want to explore this with you, Emma," he declared, his voice resolute for the first time. "But I also have to confront those fears. I can't let them linger." A responsive gleam flickered in her eyes, urging him forward. "Let us face them together then," she replied, confidence lacing her words. A collective determination was forming between them. It was exhilarating, yet terrifying, a dance he was ready to engage in. The nagging message on his phone still lingered in the back of his mind, but it felt different now, almost trivial compared to the clarity of the path before him. He'd taken the first step into uncharted territory, but the way forward still held uncertainty. As Jake prepared to embrace whatever this new chapter with Emma would bring, he wondered, what would success look like if he surrendered to authenticity? And as they started to laugh about a nearby mishap on the dance floor, a familiar vibration startled him back to reality, the phone again demanding his attention. The tension returned, reminding him that some battles were unavoidable. How would he balance the tumultuous expectations waiting on the other end? As fear and excitement wove together, Jake knew one thing: the stakes had risen, and the pivotal crossroads brewed a storm of questions he was only beginning to grapple with. Jake's attention darted to his phone, the persistent buzz slicing through his moment of connection with Emma. He had always prided himself on being responsive, but tonight's peace felt fragile, vulnerable to the shards of expectation piercing through his resolve. Each vibration was a reminder of the demands of his corporate life, the meticulous schedules, the relentless deadlines. But was it worth sacrificing the meaning behind his choices for the sake of appearances? He hesitated before glancing at the screen. The notification was from his assistant, a ripple of anxiety prickling at his neck. "Jake, we need to discuss the merger. Call me when you can." In that instant, the weight of his role as CEO felt like an anchor, pulling him back to the corporate world he had questioned just moments before. Emma must have sensed the shift. She squeezed his hand gently, grounding him in the present despite the obligation that lurked beyond the moment. "You okay?" she asked softly, her eyes searching for reassurance. Jake exhaled slowly, contemplating. "I'm fine. Just a work thing," he replied, but the words tasted like ash. He knew he was hanging at the precipice of two lives, the one anchored in ambition and success and the exhilarating uncertainty of exploring his heart. "I can always handle work later, right?" "Exactly," she said, a spark in her eyes. "But don't forget, it's okay to choose what matters right now. You've balanced everything for so long. Let's not let that define your future choices." Her words resonated like a profound truth within him. What if he did put work on the back burner, even just for tonight? The thought was thrilling, yet it sparked a familiar wave of guilt. Would his team understand? What if his hesitation led to missed opportunities? He allowed the silence to settle as he weighed his options. The irony of his situation pressed heavily. Despite the notion of being a decisive leader, here he was, grappling with a simple choice about presence, about being human. As the music faded into the background, Jake saw the evening in a new light. It wasn't just about a corporate crisis, it was about establishing boundaries that protected the essence of who he was becoming. At that moment, he realized he had begun to separate the transient importance of titles from the lasting impact of relationships. "Emma," Jake said slowly, "what if I let go of the need for control? The need to solve everything? If I stepped back from the CEO and allowed myself to just be?" She smiled knowingly. "That's the first step toward authenticity. It takes courage to forge a different path, one that embraces the unknown. You can redefine what success looks like, together." Jake swallowed hard, the thought igniting urgency within him. He needed to understand not just the mechanics of that new path, but also how to navigate the emotional complexities it introduced. Could he allow himself permission to be vulnerable without spiraling into doubt? With newfound resolve, he lowered his phone without replying to the message and took a deep breath. His shoulders loosened as he focused on Emma. "I think I'm ready to face those expectations head-on." Her eyes sparkled. "That's the Jake I know. It won't always be easy, but it will be worthwhile." Their connection felt stronger, charged with the promise of shared experiences. But Jake also sensed another weight bearing down, a discussion lingering just beyond reach. Talking about his family and their expectations would be a necessary confrontation, one he had long delayed. "Just to be clear," he began slowly, "we won't just face my work anxieties, will we? We have to talk about my family." And the abrupt flicker of an urgent thought struck him, the kind that shook the fabric of his emerging vision. What if they don't accept this relationship or what it means to me? As he rather awkwardly struggled to articulate that vulnerability, Emma leaned closer. "Don't let fear dictate your narrative, Jake. It may hurt, but embracing authenticity means opening your heart, even to those who don't understand. It's about living for yourself." Jake nodded, caught between trepidation and eagerness. This back-and-forth internal dialogue was a wrestling match without an audience, with every revelation pulling him deeper into the mess of his heart. As the ambience of the venue shifted subtly, filled with laughter and life, an unshakable question emerged in Jake's mind. Was he truly prepared to confront the discord lurking among those he cared about while embracing the joy of unfolding love? And just when he thought clarity had settled, his phone buzzed again, beckoning him back to reality. The increase of urgency intertwined with his previous reflection. Was he prepared for the confrontation awaiting him? Jake's gaze met Emma's, and a complicated knot of emotion formed within him. Was it time to reconcile the two halves of his life, or were they destined to remain at odds? The air around Jake felt thick with unspoken words and lingering doubts as he focused on Emma, who sat beside him, her expression a blend of encouragement and concern. Silently, he battled the rising tide of anxiety caused by the vibrations of expectation tethered to his phone. What did it mean for a man like him to engage in the world beyond his carefully curated corporate facade? He was a CEO adept at maneuvering through the complexities of mergers and market strategies, yet here, in this intimate setting, navigating his own emotional landscape felt like stepping into uncharted territory. Why does it feel so daunting? He pondered as he scanned the lively crowd around them. Friends, couples, laughter. Was this what he craved? Or was it merely a temporary escape from an entity that had become a gilded cage? The voices of his colleagues at work, alongside the expectations of his family, echoed ominously in his mind. The merger his assistant insisted on discussing loomed large, but for the first time, he wasn't sure he wanted to dive into that chaos. "Let us take a walk," Emma suggested, an intuitive response to the clouds shadowing his thoughts. Her tone was gentle, guiding him through the turmoil inside. As they stood, she led him toward the softly illuminated terrace, where the hum of the celebration faded into the background. Fresh air filled his lungs, igniting a flicker of clarity. He needed to confront the interplay of his evolving identity, a juxtaposition of the corporate titan and the man yearning for genuine connection. "Emma, I can't keep living this duality." The words slipped off his tongue before he could retract them, an admission surfacing from the depths. "I've spent so much time focused on expansion, profits, and trimming the fat that I've neglected the parts of me that actually feel real." His gaze dropped momentarily as he listened to the gentle rustle of leaves and the muted laughter echoing in the distance. "You're not alone in that struggle, Jake," she replied, her hand resting on his arm. "It's tough to distinguish the genuine from the expected when you've built your life around fulfilling roles." Her insight pierced through the mess of his cognitive dissonance, offering solace he hadn't anticipated. What would his family think if they saw him now, vulnerable and stripped of the layers he'd worn like armor? The fear felt insurmountable. Would they accept him as he truly was, or would they attempt to drag him back to the safety of unchallenged expectations? Jake sensed the irony. Being the CEO had made him a master of strategy but had simultaneously shackled him to ideals that had very little room for love or authenticity. "I have to talk to them," he muttered, the realization settling within. The thought of breaking through years of perception weighed heavily. Would his family still see him as successful if he chose to prioritize love over corporate victories? "It won't be easy," Emma cautioned, her expression serious but supportive. "But you're stronger than your doubts. This is your story to write, and it deserves to include the parts that matter most." The openness in her voice emboldened him, igniting a determination buried beneath layers of doubt. Jake considered the potential fallout of revealing his true self, but with Emma by his side, the prospect didn't seem as daunting. "I can't let fear dictate my choices anymore." Suddenly, a flicker of inspiration sparked. "Can we do this together?" he asked, glancing at her with newfound clarity. "Help me talk to them?" Her eyes brightened, a reflection of hope. "Of course. You won't have to face them alone." With Emma's support, it became clear that confronting his family meant more than just revealing a relationship. It meant standing up for his own happiness, a crucial step toward redefining his success. The realization settled comfortably within him, signaling the beginning of a transformation that rippled beyond the corporate walls he once felt safely behind. Yet, as they returned to the celebratory buzz, Jake caught a familiar gaze across the room. His mother, a figure carved from the granite of expectation. A knot twisted in his stomach. Would the acceptance he desired be attainable, or did the shadows of his past still linger, waiting to pounce? He couldn't ignore the inner storm that brewed, nor the exhilarating promise of dealing with it head-on. Laughter intermingled with the pulse of music. Jake understood the journey ahead would demand courage beyond the boardroom. But the fear began to dissipate, replaced by a fragile hope. Could this moment with Emma finally break the cycle of self-imposed confinement? The answer felt close, yet so obscure, deeply intertwined with his family's impending reaction. As he approached the heart of the gathering, each heartbeat echoed louder. Jake stood poised, ready for a confrontation that could redefine everything he thought he knew about love and acceptance. "What will they say?" he murmured, just loud enough for Emma to hear. She squeezed his hand reassuringly. "No matter the response, you're on your path now. And that's what truly matters." But there, amidst the laughter and the rising swell of music, he realized the real battle had only just begun. The reality of the moment settled within Jake like an unexpected weight. The laughter and chatter enveloped him, but beyond the surface brightness, shadows loomed, complicating the clarity he felt just moments earlier. Each step toward his mother felt heavier, as though the air thickened with the energies of judgment and expectation. He exchanged glances with Emma, seeking reassurance, but the calmness of her demeanor clashed with the storm brewing in his chest. "Jake, your mom's been waiting all evening for a chance to catch up with you," Emma prompted, gently nudging him forward. There was a warmth in her voice, a reminder that he didn't have to face the scrutinizing gaze alone. Yet, he could not shake off the sensation that he was standing on the precipice of something entirely new and terrifying. Jake inhaled deeply, preparing to navigate the conversation that would determine so much: the acceptance he sought, the identity he decultivated, and the woman beside him who represented everything he was afraid to embrace. As they crossed the threshold into the din of social expectations, she remained steadfast by his side, an anchor in his turbulent sea. "Mom," he said, his voice cutting through the noise, unsure yet resolute. Her face brightened at the sound of his name, but the familiar smile slowly transformed into a scrutinizing gaze. She had the uncanny ability to see beneath facades, and Jake felt acutely aware of this strength. Her brow furrowed, something akin to concern flickering in her eyes, but it made his resolve grow stronger. "Jake, why didn't you call me more often?" "Life's too short and this wedding, Mom, there's something I need to tell you." The words poured out before panic could seize him. The sudden seriousness in his tone made her sit up straighter. Emma, standing by his side, offered a reassuring smile to Jake's mother, hoping to diffuse the tension. But what was left unsaid hung thickly between them. "What is it, dear?" she asked, the moment stretching inexorably. "I've been thinking about our conversations about expectations, about the future. I know you have dreams for me, but I've realized I've lost sight of my own." The truth danced on the edge of his heartbeats, each word grounding him further. "I need you to understand that who I want to be isn't confined to what you hope for." The room seemed to silence around them, though laughter echoed just beyond their bubble. Jake's voice was steady, surprising even himself. The words held the weight of his years, his realization of who he was versus who he presented. The tension was palpable. "I'm seeing someone who truly makes me happy, Mom. Her name is Emma." He gestured toward her, who smiled broadly, a beacon amidst the uncertainty. "Emma?" His mother's brow knitted in confusion, or perhaps concern. "What does this mean for your career? What will your father say?" Those questions emerged, steeped in the same old fear he had known all his life. They clawed at his resolve, but his heart still pulsed with a kindled determination. "Mom, it means everything," he replied, his own voice surprising him with its conviction. "It means choosing a life where love and genuine connection start to define my worth." The truth amplified as he continued, feeling the empowerment ripple through him. "I can't continue living up to someone else's expectations. I have to start honoring my own." As Jake spoke, he realized revelations were not simply about seeking approval but also about claiming the right to exist as he was. No more girded in corporate armors, but wrapped in the reality of vulnerability and authenticity. Emma clasped his hand tighter, her presence radiating strength, further lighting up the shadows of uncertainty, but his mother stood still, processing the turn of events. The conflict in her gaze deepened. You could sense her struggle between maternal love and the tight hold of her own dreams for him. "Mom, I'm scared that this will change everything between us, but I can't let fear shackle me anymore. I hope you can accept Emma for who she is, and for what she means to me." The silence that followed was excruciating, each tick of the clock reverberating all around them. "Jake," she finally offered, her voice teetering on the brink of disbelief, "you're really serious about this?" As her words drifted toward him, he realized he stood at a crossroads. Depending on her response, he could either destroy the constraints looming over his relationship with her or entrench them further. "Yeah," Jake said, every ounce of courage tipping into that single word. But just when it seemed like the moment might tilt toward clarity, he saw a shadow behind his mother. It was his father, a towering figure of power and tradition, and Jake's heart sunk into disbelief. Would this be the moment their truths collided with the gravitational force of familial expectation? As the atmosphere crystallized around them, Jake felt the floor shift beneath his feet. He knew he was about to face a confrontation that could reshape not just his relationship with his family, but his very understanding of himself. What would his father say? Would he stand by his mother's apprehension, or did he bring a new perspective? The invisible scales of acceptance and rejection began to balance, one wrong word from anyone threatening to tip them from a legacy that had shackled him for too long. Tension etched itself deeply in his heart. This was only the beginning, and he was ready, but was his family prepared to meet him on this new path? The moment felt electric, poised on the brink of revelation. All he could do was take a step forward, ready for whatever awaited on the other side of the truth. A silence cascaded over the room as Jake instinctively turned to meet the imposing figure of his father. The elder man's presence was like a shadow cast over an already tense moment, a stark reminder of the weight of expectation, tradition, and the legacy of control he embodied. Jake felt the air thicken, the laughter fading into the background as if the world had paused to watch the unfolding tableau. "Dad," Jake breathed, punctuated by disbelief. The authority in his father's eyes felt all-encompassing, demanding and disapproving all at once. His heart raced, pounding out a rapid rhythm of dread and defiance. This confrontation was not merely about acceptance of his relationship with Emma, it was a showdown of identities, aspirations, and the essence of who he wanted to become. "Jake, I wasn't aware you had arranged for such a dramatic announcement." His father's voice dripped with condescension, yet it was laced with a concern that felt simultaneously critical and paternal. It was the kind of tone that sought to maintain control but coated it with the guise of love. "Dramatic? I'm just trying to be honest," Jake replied, his voice trembling yet unyielding. The words surged forth unbidden, as if they carried more weight than he had considered. But in the pit of his stomach, he questioned whether he would possess the strength to withstand the impending storm. His father's brow furrowed, a mixture of challenge and confusion crossing his features. "Honest? Or perhaps reckless? Just think of how this might affect your future, all the sacrifices your mother and I have made for you." The detached rhetoric echoed in the air, as familiar patterns resurfaced, rekindling the deep-seated frustrations Jake had thought he was beginning to shed. With a glance back at Emma, who remained patiently supportive, he found a flicker of courage igniting within him. "I've already spent too long living for everyone else's dreams," he declared, choosing clarity and conviction over fear. "I need to learn to stand on my own." For a moment, a flicker of something akin to surprise passed over his father's face, perhaps a momentary acknowledgement of his son's rebellion. But then it settled back into a mask of authority. "This isn't just about you, Jake. You have a responsibility. What will your colleagues think? What about the image we've cultivated?" Jake felt the suffocating air wrap around him, yet in its grip, he recognized a truth stirring a realization that his life needed to be defined by him alone. "Let them think what they want." The defiance erupted as he spoke. "I can't keep constraining myself to fit a mold that suffocates my worth. It's exhausting. What you call worth, I see as a departure from what is honorable. You're choosing a life of distraction." His father's voice boomed, eroding the tentative foundations Jake had begun to build. The anger rippled through Jake's being, washing over him and forcing him to reconsider, but only for an instant. Instead of shutting down, he chose to push back against the tide that threatened to pull him under. "Maybe it's distraction to you, but it feels more like freedom to me." The exchange hung in the air, heavy with unresolved emotions. Jake's heart raced, caught between the fear of rejection and the thrill of finally articulating his own needs. This wasn't merely an argument but a battle for authorization over his life, yet even in this charged moment, Jake sensed the undercurrents of uncertainty in his father's posture. The rigidity began to waver slightly, and as their eyes locked, he wondered if beneath the facade, his father grappled with his own enemy: fear of loss, fear of change. "Do you really think she'll stick around when things get tough?" his father asked, attempting to pierce the veil of Jake's resolve. The question hit like a bolt of lightning. In that split second, Jake caught himself in a moment of introspection. Doubts crept in, whispering insidiously about the future. Would Emma remain steadfast when faced with the storm of his family's expectations? Yet, he pushed those fears aside. But she's here now. And that's what matters. The quiet in the room deepened as Jake voiced this simple truth. In a life packed with strategies and posturing, perhaps all he needed to do was embrace the unconditional love that stood beside him. The discussion had shifted from mere acceptance to the heart of what it meant to truly live, the choice of love over fear, connection over separation. "Can't you understand?" he pressed, his voice cracking under the weight of sincerity. "Love is about choosing to be vulnerable and real. I want to build my future with Emma because she makes me believe in myself." The silence after his declaration felt monumental, reverberating through the minds and hearts of those present. Whatever dynamic had caused this rift might be ready to change, if only his father could find a way to meet him halfway on this new road. But suddenly, Jake realized he had laid his heart bare, and now he stood on the ledge of profound vulnerability. He knew, deep down, that the next words from his father could either ignite hope or plunge him back into despair. "Do you really think love will save you when the world turns against you?" The question dripped with skepticism, yet it lingered, heavy with the implications of what it meant to choose love not just for others, but for oneself. Jake inhaled deeply, determined to absorb the challenges ahead. This moment was no longer just about his relationship with Emma or the approval of his parents. It was about understanding and carving out his authentic path, one that required him to acknowledge that love and personal truth were intertwined in ways he was only starting to comprehend. But as he braced himself for what would come next, he realized that the walls of tradition were not just barriers, they were catalysts for growth. The confrontation with his father was only the beginning, a turning point poised to redefine who he was meant to become. What lay ahead in this uncharted territory was still obscured, but one thing was clear: he would navigate this landscape with courage, and perhaps even inspire his father to recognize the possibilities that lay within the vulnerability of change. As he stood on the brink of transformation, the question rang in his mind: could his father evolve too, or would he remain captive to an outdated vision of control? The answer was still veiled, but Jake was determined to find it, and ready to confront whatever shadows lay ahead. Jake felt the weight of silence envelop him after his father's question, each second stretching into eternity, his heart pounding in anticipation. The uncertainty clung to him like a second skin, paralyzing yet igniting a fire within. This wasn't merely a clash of opinions, it was a fierce trial of wills between generations, a fight for his very essence. The walls seemed to close in, but he felt an unexpected grounding in the reality of his emotions. Despite the rising tide of tensions, he grasped at the fact that this confrontation had carved out an immense opportunity for change, not just for himself, but perhaps for his father, too. Could he harness that potential? "Dad," he began, his voice steadier than he expected, each syllable emerging from a wellspring of newfound resolve. "I know you've always wanted what's best for me. But you have to understand, this is what's best for me right now." His father's brow knotted tighter, the flickering flame of anger mingled with a hint of uncertainty. "Best? You can't make a decision of this magnitude based only on how you feel in the moment. It's about responsibility, reputation, the future." Jake inhaled, holding back the rush of his frustrations. "Isn't my happiness part of my future? We're always talking about legacy, but that legacy can't be built on the sacrifices of our dreams alone, right?" The words tumbled out, spurred by an urgency he did not quite fully understand. The room's atmosphere shifted imperceptibly, like the slow turn of a tide. His father blinked, the icy exterior cracking just a little. Jake pressed on, fueled by the tempting notion that he could reach beneath the hard veneer. "I respect everything you've achieved," he continued, each word rolling off his tongue with a blend of sincerity and conviction he longed to embrace. "But I also need you to respect my journey." As he spoke, the guardedness in his father's eyes faltered for a moment, revealing a glimpse of vulnerability that Jake hadn't noticed before. It was an ephemeral shift, but it ignited a flicker of hope. Could it be that they shared more than an unyielding lineage of expectations? "Your mother and I," his father muttered, the defensiveness creeping back. "We just want to see you succeed. We've tried to protect you." Protect. The word echoed hauntingly in Jake's mind. Protecting meant restricting, caging dreams, shielding them from the unpredictable specter of life. "But you're not protecting me. You're confining me." The revelation struck him with unsettling clarity. Jake's pulse quickened, his thoughts racing as he reflected on the implications of this realization. Confined his life to live according to a script he had never written. The weight of it hung heavy, yet the burden felt slightly lighter in accepting the truth. It was time to stop being shackled by fear and the need for approval. "I want to embrace my life, obstacles and all," he declared with newfound vigor. "I don't want to take the safe route if it means abandoning who I am. I want to forge my path, with Emma by my side. It's about making choices, learning from them, and growing." The intensity of the moment surged. Jake's father, firmly entrenched in his ideals, struggled visibly. He seemed to wrestle with the stark realities of his son's autonomy against the ingrained notion of familial control that had defined their relationship. Do you really think she will share that journey? What if it breaks you? His father's tone softened slightly, fear reflecting through the bitterness. Maybe it will break me, Jake surrendered. But wouldn't it be worth finding out? Isn't that how we define ourselves? The sincerity in Jake's voice seemed to pierce through the accumulated years filled with inherited expectations. For a heartbeat, he thought he could see the ghost of a conflict reflective of his own youth ripple within his father. They were not so different, he realized, both battling against invisible chains. As a moment of stillness settled between them, Jake felt the tide of possibility swell. He didn't know what this conversation would ultimately yield, but he recognized the shifting landscape of their relationship. The potential for growth lay in the balance, teetering on the edge of acceptance. Can you try to understand that your way isn't the only way? Jake asked, the softness in his plea a stark contrast to the firestorm brewing within. His father's stern visage softened even more, wavering slightly, exposing cracks in the authoritative facade nurtured over a lifetime. Your life is mine to shape, Jake finished, his voice guiding the words with urgency. And I want your support, not your approval. The tension coiled, a scream waiting to escape or a sigh of relief at the cusp of possibility. Jake stood, vulnerable but determined, his heart echoing the beats of courage and conflict he faced every day. In the midst of his father's expectations, Jake realized he was no longer just battling for his future. He was carving out a space for understanding, for connection, for authentic evolution. As he awaited his father's response, a knot of anxiety tightened in his chest. The question loomed, not just for him but for his father. How willing was he to embrace a new vision of family? Jake braced himself, knowing that the next words could reshape his world completely. Would his father choose to see and participate in this transformation, or would the shadows of tradition smother the light of change? Jake held his breath, the air thick with unspoken words and unresolved tensions. Time seemed to drift, the seconds were now an eternity, stretching painfully. His father's eyes flickered, a tempest of emotions swirling beneath the surface. Would familiarity breed contempt or acceptance? I don't want to disappoint you, Jake murmured, the admission slipping from his mouth before he could harness it. The admission felt both heavy and liberating, a bridge forming between father and son. Disappoint me? His father echoed, confusion mingling with indignation. You think I care about that? I care that you don't throw your life away on a whim. It struck Jake that this wasn't merely anger or frustration, it was fear, a fear of the unknown that also lay ahead of him. The possibility of losing his relationship with his father became a looming specter in the corner of his mind. But was staying in the cage safer than risking it all for freedom? No, Dad. It's not whims. It's about choices, he emphasized, deepening the conviction in his voice. You raised me to be strong, to think critically. What I want is to reshape my life, not to live it according to someone else's prescription. His voice trembled, wavering on the edge of defiance. For the first time, Jake saw something shift in his father's expression and acknowledgement, however tentative. Yet the pull of tradition was a powerful anchor. And what if this path doesn't work out? What if you fail? The question hung heavy in the air, the unspoken threads of past failures both implicit and crippling. Failures could breed wisdom, Jake knew, they could shape him differently. What if I fail? He echoed back, newfound adrenaline surging through him. But what if I soar? His father's eyes reflected a fleeting glimpse of pride layered with concern, two emotions battling for dominance in a complex equation of love and expectation. This exchange, rich with potential, had unlocked something raw in their relationship. Jake seized that moment, hoping it might be the catalyst for transformation. Can you trust me enough to allow me this freedom? Jake dared to ask, the weight of the stakes escalating. It felt almost revolutionary, as though he were advocating for a right to choose his own path. Would his father allow himself to let go of control, or would he try to catch him as he fell? Silence enveloped the room again, but this time a new sensation accompanied a possibility. In that charged atmosphere, Jake recalled his recent conversations with Emma about aspirations and future dreams. He wondered what kind of life they could build together, free from the chains of expectation. Jake's father cleared his throat, an almost humble gesture. It's hard to watch you venture into the unknown. You're my son. I've only ever wanted the best for you. The honesty in his voice was poignant, yet it was tinged with an edge of painful worry. I understand, Jake replied softly, but my version of best looks different now. The dreams I have aren't a threat to you, they're a testament to what you've given me. I wouldn't be standing here without you. In that moment, Jake realized the depth of his courage. Perhaps this battle was not just for his autonomy but also for his father's acceptance of his journey, a journey they could potentially share, albeit from vastly different viewpoints. Jake felt himself shift mentally. The hardening of his father's facade, once impenetrable, signaled an opening, a willingness to engage with him on common ground. Could they redefine their relationship into something more fulfilling, a partnership of sorts where understanding took precedence? As his father's gaze softened, Jake sensed an unsettling mixture of hope and dread. What did it mean to traverse the chasm that spanned their lives, to invite his father, once so resolute in his ways, to explore a new horizon with him? It would require vulnerability on both sides, a willingness to walk through uncertainty together. Just as Jake prepared to articulate these thoughts, the door creaked open behind him. A servant entered, announcing, "Dinner is served." "Sir. We should get going." The moment shattered. The tension built from their conversation lingered in the air, but Jake caught the glimmer of understanding in his father's eyes. An invitation was emerging, a slight offering. As they walked towards the dining area in silence, Jake felt the niggle of uncertainty but also a burgeoning sense of empowerment. He was unearthing parts of himself he'd long buried: resilience, courage, a passion for the future. Yet it struck him, even as they navigated this critical juncture, that the conversation was only just starting. How would his father respond to his journey? Would the night lead to a revelation, a breakthrough? Jake's heart raced with anticipation, but as they took their seats, an unexpected twist unfurled in his mind. What new challenges and confrontations awaited him after this tentative truce? The moment of reckoning felt ever nearer, demanding clarity and resolution. What lies ahead would determine not just his path but the evolving dynamics within their family, answers he was ready to unearth, yet unsure of how to confront. As the evening unfurled, the seamless rhythm between Jake and Emma catalyzed a core transformation that he had never anticipated. Each shared glance, each whisper exchanged, incrementally stripped away the layers of performance that had cloaked his true self. The warm glow from the sparkling chandeliers overhead bathed them in a luminous haze, guiding Jake toward a budding confidence he sought to embrace. Seated at the dinner table with his family, Jake felt an inexplicable shift within himself. Conversations flowed around him, ribbons of laughter and tentative exchanges weaving among topics of work and anticipated vacations. Yet, amid the familiarity, he remained acutely aware of the undercurrents. His heart thrummed with the pulse of unsaid words just waiting to erupt. With every bite, every trivial comment shared, Jake summoned the crystal-clear resolve that had grown from the depths of his recent revelations. He was no longer caught in the battle of outward validation. He was here to affirm his own truth, one he had almost lost in the labyrinth of his corporate existence. Then, the moment arrived, like the starting gun of a race. He cleared his throat, feeling Emma's steady presence next to him, a reinforcement of the strength he had begun to cultivate. "Can I say something?" The table quieted as attention turned toward him, a curious survey of faces letting him assert his burgeoning voice. "I've been doing a lot of thinking lately," he began, a calm steadiness infusing his words. "About what I want out of life and how I define success. I want to share that with you all." He met his mother's gaze, catching a glimpse of the worry laced in her features, and steadied himself against it. "Success isn't just measured in profits or promotions anymore. I want to prioritize authenticity, love, and genuine connections. That's why I wanted to tell you that I'm with Emma. She makes me happy like I never thought was possible." The air crackled with tension as the revelation seeped in, and silence escorted his confession. The weight of expectation hovered heavily, yet Jake felt buoyed, hearts racing in unison within him. "What do you mean, Emma?" His father's brows furrowed, bewilderment etched across his face. "Is this some kind of phase?" Jake pressed on, persistence surging through him as wave after wave of uncertainty crashed. No, it's not a phase. This is real. And I'm choosing to embrace it, regardless of what anyone thinks. From across the table, he could see the intent of his father's eyes shifting, testing waters, measuring responses. Jake held firm as conversations paused and scrutinies deepened. You both have invested a lot into my success, and while I appreciate the foundation that you built for me, I can't sacrifice my happiness for it. I need to carve my own path, even if it frightens me. In that moment, Jake recognized his growth. The doubt that once paralyzed him was now overshadowed by an emergent self-assurance. Do you really think this is what's best for you? His mother attempted to keep the fray within familiar lines, yet Jake noticed her cracks, those flickering moments of vulnerability sparking in her question. Mom, he breathed, heart swelling, I think what's best is to honor who I really am. It's liberating to choose love over everything else, to choose the person who sees me unguarded. As he spoke, an invisible tie transformed his relationship with Emma from fragile to resolute. They had faced adversity together, and now, it felt as though they were fighting for their shared dream, freedom from external judgment, rooted in their holistic development. Jake's father shifted uneasily in his seat, the debate roiling beneath his veneer of control. But is this romantic notion sustainable? What future do you envision? You can't simply discard years of diligence. Maybe I can, Jake countered, but it doesn't mean I want to disregard the work we have done. I aim to incorporate everything I've learned into a future with purpose, where both my professional and personal lives harmonize. This dialogue reverberated around the table, each family member grappling with the implications. There lay before them a chasm laden with years of misconceptions and expectations, yet Jake stood resolutely prepared to leap across, knowing the journey was worth the risk. A thick air of contemplation infused the moment, granting Jake reason to hope as he took in his family. The voices of dissent morphed into quiet deliberation. The murmurs echoed around him, neither totally objectionable nor entirely embracing, yet it was progress, the first tentative foothold on the mountain of acceptance. Then, his father spoke at last, voice tight yet slipping through the cracks he had created. Jake, if this is truly where your heart lies, perhaps there is merit in seeing how this unfolds. The acknowledgement struck like a bell chiming in the stillness, awakening a deep yearning for understanding. I won't ever stop chasing what I envision, partnership and authenticity, Jake responded, the relief crystal clear in his tone. But I'll do so with accountability, the way I have with the business, still striving for excellence. In that moment, he not only claimed his own narrative but invited his family into the dynamic reconciliation of hope, love, and evolution. They didn't need to fully understand his perspective, they only needed to accept him as he was becoming. As the evening continued, laughter resumed slowly, trips to the buffet became unguarded, and Jake felt waves of contentment wash over him. The laughter felt less forced, the conversations unfolded more freely. For the first time, his past and future lines began to blur into something cohesive, something beautiful. With every shared smile across the table, Jake recognized a newly established unity, a grounding realization that success could be built anew upon the foundations of authenticity and connection. He glanced sideways at Emma, who lit up in all her creative inspiration. Perhaps they were finally building their own legacy. As the night came to a close, Jake understood that this pivotal moment represented more than just his acceptance into the fold of authentic adulthood. It was a vote of confidence in redefining what love, happiness, and success meant for all of them. With each passing moment, he felt the exhilarating possibility of their lives unspooling like vibrant ribbons against the fabric of time. That he had achieved a transformative shift. His heart was no longer caged by the expectations of the past. The inheritance he sought to cultivate with Emma represented an investment in a future built on mutual understanding, affection, and a profound sense of belonging. With this newfound resolve, his journey was just beginning, one founded on bold authenticity and the relentless pursuit of love. Don't let this moment fade. You need to subscribe now to witness the next chapter of Jake's journey and other emotional stories that redefine success. Leave a like now to fuel this channel and keep these transformative stories coming. Comment your thoughts on Jake's breakthrough and what it means for the future. And remember, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this message. Your support is what keeps us going. Let us embrace authenticity together.